Hi guys, welcome to the Improvement Season podcast. It's me, as always, Steve Hall, and on the other end is Pascal Floor in a slightly different location. But if you're listening, then that doesn't matter for you, so it's totally fine. The aesthetic doesn't matter.
That's true. Unless the sound is a little bit different.
True.
So when I was using the different microphone and not this one, I could hear a lot of echo. Hopefully that's not the case right now, but don't get used to this environment because this will probably change here over the next couple of days. And yeah.
I cannot wait. I know you're on the third floor in your house, and me and Charlotte, because I don't know if we even said on the Improvement Season, the house completely fell through. The people basically were never really in. They just weren't helpful at all, and so it's very frustrating what actually happened in the end. But we've been looking at new houses, and quite a lot of them have the loft conversion, which I think is what you've got there, right? It's like a loft conversion.
Let me just open a beer. So, just continue.
And it's new Monster branded beer.
It is a Monster. You got me there.
I actually, on the note of Monsters, I always thought white was my favorite. And then I started going back to the original lately. I was like, man, I actually really like the original again.
The black with just the blue label.
Yeah.
I haven't had this one in a very long time because it's the same way as you. I always thought like I very much prefer the white one. It could be that I had in the summertime for the first time the green one.
Yeah.
That tastes very artificial, but also actually very, very good. But I could imagine that you can't have too many of those because it really tastes so artificial. But sorry, you were saying with the loft, right?
It's all right. I was the one who got kind of completely sidetracked. Yeah, so the loft. So yeah, we've been looking at houses, and the ones with a loft conversion, I'm like, wow. And after that house falling through that we were looking at, I was like, for me, there could be a house that looks better. It's got more stuff done to it. But for me, space is a premium so much, especially since being in this flat and having like my desk and my gym and everything in the same location. I'm just like, I want a room that I can have as my office, have as my studio, like you've kind of got there. And
it's cool.
I can't wait for that because to be able to have like another monitor. So I have the questions like half on my screen and half of you at the moment. And this is like how I do the podcast. So
I even said it over on WhatsApp that I can't imagine working like this any longer. So I've been working like this with 3 monitors in front of me since I don't even know, since a long time. And I couldn't revert back to only having a notebook in front of me. It makes the job so much harder and it takes like ages then to do things.
I imagine it's kind of like when I went from my previous flat where the internet was terrible, awful, to now where like the internet is just like, it's not even a question. It's just like, it's never not going to run amazingly.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine going back to my parents have probably as good internet as I had back there, or maybe actually maybe better. And I can remember going home and trying to work. I'm just I actually can't come here and work. I'm not doing it because it takes more than twice as long for me to do my job. So I guess I don't know how much you want. I know last time we kind of talked a bit about where you were with things, and you've had quite a lot in the meantime happen between now and then. I guess a lot has happened, but not much has changed.
Unfortunately. So I'm still feeling like shit. That's also one of the reasons why I'm wearing my glasses at the moment, even though that I don't prefer it. And I also know that doing it when I'm home, it's probably better to just wear the glasses instead of contact lenses when you are in front of a screen. I absolutely know that. But still feeling like shit. I have days where I'm feeling better, I have days where I'm feeling awful. I got an MRI scan of my brain done. Nothing came back in a negative sense or so, no findings. Blood tests came back as well. Normal, even test ranges are normal. So no indicators or findings there that could explain my current situation. And then the next steps would be go to see a neurologist so that he can have a look over the entire symptoms and stuff like that, and also then the MRI scan. What else did I do? I went to I'm going to see my no, not the ophthalmologist I've seen in the summertime, so everything was clear in regards to my eyes. But I'm going to see my it's kind of my optician, I think it's called, right? When it's just like for normal glasses, because maybe just my eyesight has gotten so much worse over the past days, which I don't believe is the case, but also checking there. So and also then going to see the physiotherapist just to get my neck checked, just to see whether things are just maybe tight and thus restricting blood flow and actually getting to the backside of my head, where then all of the eyesight is taking place. So yeah, lots of things in the pipeline, lots of things happened. Nothing came out of it yet. Kind of it did, because I was very, very, very scared going to the MRI scan when it comes to my brain. Same goes for back. Like last year when I got my heart checked, there were some irregularities, and still there are. But after the MRI, nothing came back actually, and the same goes for then the brain. And I was very, very afraid actually getting some kind of negative results that then, I don't know, means that you have to undergo surgery or even worse or so, right? So yeah, and here we are. Can't train at the moment simply because I really, really don't feel like it. I'm waking up with headaches each and every single morning. Can't really see the way I would like to, at least, which then in return causes more headaches. And yeah, I need to bring things down just at the moment. If it's also related to stress or so, then of course I don't want to just like keep pushing through it in regards to training, but be smart about it. Rather try to find the sole cause and the roots for it at the moment, rather than just being idiotic and continue pushing.
Yeah, it's kind of, I was kind of like, it's good because you found out that nothing, as far as you know from those tests, there's nothing serious. Yeah. But it's also like nothing's actually improved. So it's kind of like, it's a relief. It's not serious, but it still hasn't actually got better. Yeah, which isn't fun.
So something is going on. What it is, we yet have to find out. And I'm just like, I want it to go away, but I also don't want it to go away just by itself. And then it's just like, what was it? You never know or understood the cause for it. And then you can't really prevent it from happening if it's a repeating thing or so, right? And that's why I would rather like to find out what it is instead of being like, yeah, now it's gone or so. But yeah, it's also getting to me that I can't train at the moment, that I can't, that I'm not on the diet. It fucking sucks. Can't really put it differently. I want to go back to training, but once again, have to be smart about the entire situation.
I can only imagine how hard that is, because all the audience listening, when they're forced, I don't know, for injury or whatever it is, and effectively it's like an injury, I guess, it's preventing you to train. Like, it's just horrible not being able to do that, and that can in itself cause worse mental health, mental well-being, and that all leads into like a negative loop. So I hope you can find the cause, and hopefully, like I said, via our voice messages, hopefully it is like just something tight in your neck, and it can just be like there's a knot, and you can just push a button and it's solved. But
I even ordered a new pillow yesterday, so it should arrive to. Exactly.
Yes.
Those where your really just sink in, and then it takes the shape of your head. I'm gonna
get one.
Yeah, so this is something that I've ordered, and I don't know. I mean, you take a look at the Amazon reviews, and it's just like, it's a first night in the books, and I immediately feel better. And I was just like, okay, how? So reviews, man, there are so many just like fake reviews there.
True.
And especially the ones like that pillow has over 12,000 reviews, and I was just like,
nice.
Okay, I'm just getting one because I'm just that type of person.
It's funny you say it though, because someone asked me on Instagram like about pillows and like how important do you think a pillow is, or something along those lines, which led me to then do some research. And it's not a huge deal, but orthopedic pillows did come out on top in terms of pillows. So there's actual evidence to support the use of it. So
I mean, I can
I've
see
thought about
that.
it.
Just imagine you are someone who's super jacked and buffed. Sorry, no offense, Steve. Just imagine.
My traps are huge.
But just imagine you're just someone like IFBB Pro, like let's say Ronnie Coleman, super massive, or Marcus Rule, bad example, right? And you're lying in your bed, and you can't even reach the pillow with your head because your delts are so big that you're just like sleeping like this on your delts, basically. I can't see that this is healthy for your neck. And thus, I'm very much looking forward to that, because if you really think about it, I mean, yeah, probably there may be something to it, right? Because here's always a gap, and we probably all know that situation where we've, had our neck in the wrong position for like 10 minutes. And then after 10 minutes, it's already like, oh God, it's stiff now. Just imagine sleeping like that for the entire night or so.
Yeah, I think the review that I looked at was like, basically, it needs to support the neck, so it doesn't want to be huge. And then ones with like goose feathers and stuff, they get really hot, and you don't sleep well when you get really hot, so you don't want it to be super hot. And then personal preference comes into it as well, because I know like some people are like, they sleep with like 4 pillows or something under their neck. I'm like, I always have one thin pillow. That's all I want on my neck.
Yeah. I was just like, just looking to the side, because I was just like, when you brought up sleeping with more than one pillow, and I'm someone who does that, but not for my head, but actually on both sides of my body, there are some pillows. And Katie is always so annoyed by that, because I take up so much space in the bed. But I need that because I'm sleeping on the side, and whenever I'm sleeping on the side, my upper shoulders are always rounding forward, and it puts me in such a compromised position where I'm always like crunched in like this. So I need something to hug, so that my shoulders are actually staying in the appropriate position.
That's also something, I think there's pillows for that specifically, like support pillows. So. Anyway, enough pillow talk, I guess. So we'll have to wait and see what happens on your end. And I mean, the only silver lining about this is the fact that we said, like, we talked about it already, is this is early in the year, and all the shows, at least with the UKDFBA, and I imagine other shows across different organizations, are going to be late in the season because they want them to go ahead, and they want people to have time to bring their best. So the UKDFBA actually, what was there, 3 qualifiers, and there's normally like at least double that.
Man,
so
this
would
be so full with people. Don't you think that they would put a cap on it or so? They
must have to. They normally do. They have so basically, if you don't sign up in time, you could be ready, and then there could be full. Absolutely. So,
but I could imagine that it's more this time where they really are saying like, not on time, but just like, okay, we have this many spots, where it's like, okay, it is kind of, if you don't sign up on time, but it's more like first come, first serve.
Yeah, it's going to be super competitive. I don't know if they are anticipating that, like double days or something, because like middleweight men's open is like always packed. And I've been to shows where it's been at full capacity, and that's a normal year with all the other qualifiers. So I think as soon as I know, like guaranteed I'm going to be doing that show in London, like I'm just going to have to book it in, because you don't want to risk not being able to, like, you get shredded and then, oh shit, I can't, there's no space for me on the show. Great. Oh dear.
But first, things have to get better in the world. Before this, I mean, everyone is saying that they will be through with the majority of vaccination and stuff. But there's a very interesting debate happening in Germany at the moment of like, can you hold people back, or can you put some restrictions on people when they have been vaccinated? So it's becoming more of a ethical question now of like, can you even do this any longer? And some people are, of course, under the opinion that as long as we don't know whether they are still contagious, then we need to. But then afterwards, it's kind of, if it turns out that they aren't contagious, it's still a very, very sensitive debate to have, because this would be a subtle enforcement of getting the vaccine. And I'm all for vaccination. I will definitely get a vaccine, that's for sure. But I also know that some people, they don't want to because they don't feel comfortable with that. And I can absolutely see why, right? And this way, if you were to say like, okay, if you're vaccinated, you can actually live your life as normally, right? And if you don't, you have no chance, right? It is a very interesting debate, to be honest. But once again, let's not go down the political route, but just wanted to bring it up because this has been a very interesting debate that is currently going on in Germany that I find at least very, very interesting, just from my ethical view.
Yeah. I guess it's similar to the debate of, like, some people say people at risk of being like with aerobic kind of comorbidities or whatever, and being elderly, they should be the ones who are staying in, and then everyone else who's like fit and healthy can go out. And then that's the debate of why shouldn't they be able to go out if they're like willing to take the risk and otherwise likely to survive. Yeah. So it's even more of a debate because I can see like they're even more less at risk because they had the vaccine. Yeah. Oh, God. This is going to be an interesting year, isn't it?
And I thought that 2020 was just behind us and we can just move forward now. But I even said to one of my athletes here today, if you would have asked me like last year, and I think that this is something that we've talked about in the Improvements Even podcast, we talked about, I can't see this going on for more than 2 weeks or so. Yeah. And then 1 year later, here we are.
It's all the COVID vlogs are now coming out. Because my one just came out yesterday. Now we're in the lockdown situation. Yeah. So it's like my first workout from home with my bands and like TRX. Yeah. How things quickly changed. I remember saying like, I definitely can't get like all these weights. I just don't have the space. And it's like, I think I can fit these in now. Oh dear. So yeah, I mean, on my end, nothing much has changed. It's very, very samey. It's just training from home, ticking the boxes, making sure that I eat enough. Actually, and on the note of, I know you were saying you want to get to the bottom of it and it not just to get better because you don't want it to occur again. It reminded me of when I was having that sickness and fatigue. And like, I don't know what that was. I still don't know what that was. But something I did change lately was I'm basically not having kind of normal milk. So either lactose free or oat milk. And I'm still consuming like whey protein and like Greek yogurt, but I've just reduced my lactose intake, and that seems to make me a lot less bloated and farty. Oh, really? So I think I must have a mild lactose intolerance.
Like gastric distress before that?
Not like horrendous, but every evening I was just like, I'm farting so much, like just like bloated and farting. And it did get to the point where it was gastric distress. Like I'd be on a walk, I'm just like, man, my stomach feels like just in pain. It's just not nice. So since reducing my lactose intake, that helped. So maybe back then I was just abusing all the milk, and I know I was having like a liter of chocolate milk every day and stuff. Yes, just something similar.
Did I ever tell you about my older roomie? That he was lactose intolerant. However,
yes, I remember you saying
that one chocolate he loved, and every time he wanted to actually give or do something good for himself, and he knew that he doesn't need to leave the house anymore, he bought himself that bar of chocolate and actually consumed it. And yeah, he was then farting the entire time and maybe having a little bit of stomach pain, but apparently it was worth it.
Because you can buy like, I don't know, lactase or something. I don't know what it is, the enzyme that like deals with it. So maybe you could have just whacked some of those in as well. Yeah. And you could have solved his issue there and just
don't know, maybe
not have to deal with it.
Maybe it wasn't about the chocolate bar. Maybe it was the discomfort and the farting that actually
that was the reward.
Yeah, exactly.
So nothing. I was hoping that by the end of this meso, like for my last mass meso, basically, I hoped I would be back in the gym, but it doesn't look like that's going to be the case. No. I can't see the
situation. Have you gotten any kind of announcements or so?
Fast, efficient fat loss Does that sound like music to your ears? The mini cut movement might just be for you. Mini cuts are like robbing the fat bank. You want to get in and out with as much fat as possible. In a short period of time, you could easily look to lose 6 to 12 pounds of fat. The mini cut movement is excellent. There's group support for extra accountability and also expert help within the group. We have educational videos to keep you on track along the way, and you get all your nutrition and training customized and individualized for you. So if that sounds of interest, get involved with the mini cut movement. Things aren't getting better. No. The hospitals are at capacity and not in a good place, and the actual R values in London in some places are under 1, which is really good, but they're not in the best place across the country. So I can't see us moving into tiers, which we were in before, until maybe March. But yeah, basically we're still not in a good place. So yeah, I see all these Australians and Americans all training in their gyms and seeing people, and I'm like, man, when did that last happen for us? It feels like it never happened.
Hey, you're not the one to complain. You have seen the gym from the inside back in December. Yeah, I haven't seen a gym ever since the end of October. I don't even know what a gym actually looks like any longer from the inside.
It's going to be weird going when it all just is. Well, it will be, and then you get very back to normal and you get into a routine and you're like, I never left the gym. But it will be nice to eventually get back there, because it's just, we've talked about it a lot, how it's not the same. I want
to get back to the gym, and I know how fucking spoiled that sounds. Like, what a first world problem I have. I just want to go back to the gym. But I also mean it that when people are talking about physical exercise being like therapy and also good for mental health, I really feel it for the first time in my life, how much this does me well in regards to the way I feel going to the gym. And this not being here for so in the time span of 1 year, 6 months, 7 months, not being able to train at the gym, now it starts to compound and actually makes things worse and worse, because training from at home, for me at least, is simply not the same. And I can definitely see why many other people are feeling the same way. And that has nothing to, or call it whatever you want. Call it first world problems, right? It can be this way if you really look at it from this perspective. I just call it problems of our society, right? And yeah, I just want to go back to the gym.
So, should we get to questions?
Yeah, let's do this.
I don't think there's much else to report. It's like us, and we say trying to get vlog content. It's like, well, what can I do? Film a full day of eating or a session? Because in reality, I can't. Or filming me going for a walk. Not much. Although I did find a new walk. I know you said you've got some good walks around you.
Yeah.
And I always, I'm like, I don't. But actually, we have Battersea Park quite close. It's a long walk to walk all the way around it and come back. I hit 20,000 steps if I do that. But it's it's lovely. I did that last weekend, and I might make that a weekend thing. That's how exciting things are. I'm like, I found a new walk.
Yeah. I mean, when I'm deeper in prep, I will always then take the moment or time out of the day, get there with car, because there are a couple of kind of natural parks around here. Just not as big as many people now imagine it to be, but smaller ones. And it's so lovely to just go on a walk there. Of course, you have to get there by car because it's a little bit outside, but I think this is definitely something that I will incorporate, especially in spring. Oh boy, that would be lovely just to walk around there.
It's nice, particularly here, because as you know, this is sort of building work going on everywhere, cars, it's just, so.
Well, on a side note, before we are moving to questions, what was the American embassy like over the past couple of days?
Nothing's happened, actually. There's been nothing around it. Nothing. Yeah, it's not been interesting at all. When the election and everything was going on, they had some lights on and stuff, but for this, there was nothing. Bit boring, really.
Meme times are over. So, yeah.
Questions, right? Yeah. So we are now selecting questions so that everyone is aware. So if you want to get your questions prioritized, you will have to join our member site, because we have now realized actually that's where we should be prioritizing questions. It makes a lot of sense. So if we're having a Q&A with Mike or another guest, we'll also be putting in a question box in there and prioritize these first. So if you are a member site or part of the member site, please ask here, not in the Facebook group, because we'll go to the Facebook group ones afterwards. So, and within the Facebook group, Patreon supporters are prioritized. I just don't think there is a huge number of those at the moment. So let's go for the first question, which is from Scotty, or rather Scott MYS, which I think is actually my client. So he is asking, question for you both. Do your significant others work out or train? How do you think about that? And then I'll go to the next.
No. I mean, before Tony was born, Katie was actually doing participating at CrossFit classes. But first, after I actually told her about CrossFit, and she actually quite enjoyed it. And I even gave her Nike Metcons, custom designed ones, for her, I think it was birthday, if I'm not mistaken. And then I put my penis inside of her, made her pregnant. Ever since then, she didn't really work out at all. Yeah,
she did.
It was my fault actually, with putting my penis inside of her and making her pregnant. So
it's lifting the kids, playing with the kids.
Yeah, it's my fault that she's not lifting. But no, she's not into it. But she doesn't really think anything about it. She knows that I'm into it. She knows that this is my occupation. She knows how much I love it, how much that means to me. But at the same time, I'm also not dogmatic about it, where it's like, okay, I got my chicken breast, I got my rice, got my broccoli. And even then, right, even if I'm dieting, the kids and they eat with me. Right? Especially like when I'm eating a salad at the end of the day or so, I think sometimes people look at bodybuilding food or the way bodybuilders eat in a negative kind of way. But in it for itself, when you really think about it and you have a well-balanced nutritional intake and diet, I think this is actually a very, very, very good way of eating. So I see myself as a role model, especially for small kids. You act as the role model. The things that you eat are things that they apply for themselves as well. You hear it so often that kids eat your vegetables, and then mom and dad, they just eat like garbage the entire time. No, we are adults. You can decide whenever you grow up to eat the way that you would like to. But now you live under my roof and you have to eat that way, right? But they don't do it themselves. And this is causing a huge conflict for kids. Whereas I'm eating like a pro. Eating steak, eating broccoli for lunch, and evening time eating like a salad or so. And the kids, they want the same thing. Tony is always sitting on my lap when we are having breakfast. He's eating some quark with fruits with me. And I think this is the way that can be beneficial as well. And that's why I also think that Katie has nothing against that, because it kind of can also act like being a role model if you don't take it to those extreme levels. And even if I were to be a huge jacked up steroid guy, I would probably not just smear it in their faces and be like, yeah, so kids, don't disturb me now. I'm in the bathroom getting my tren injection. Not something like that I would be doing, but yeah, you get the idea, right?
Yeah, I guess for me, it's Charlotte doesn't do anything. I can't even say.
Yeah.
Before
you were really careful what it is that you want to say.
Before we, when we were dating initially, she used to do a running club at work, and before that, she used to go to the gym quite regularly. But since we've been together, she has done literally, I could probably count on the number on like one hand the amount of times I've known her to do some exercise, which like it sounds like I'm being rude, but seriously, she takes care of things, not to the level that I do, but I've definitely given her more awareness about trying to get in some fruit and veg and trying to, like, I don't know, have a little bit of protein, especially because she's vegan, which makes life a lot more difficult and much more restrictive. But I didn't ever Like I fell for her at work through conversation and her personality, not for the fact that I met her at the gym. Like I didn't find her at the gym or something. I know there are so many couples that like they're both compete at the same time, or they're both competitors, and like I can see that working. I can also see why like it doesn't work. And for us, we just found someone who isn't of that. So I would like her to exercise more. I think it's really good for her to do that. And I would encourage it. And I'd love if she lifted weights and stuff. That would be really cool if she got into it. But I love her for her personality and not for what hobby she has. So yeah, I'd like her to do more, but it's not going to change how I feel about her to the degree that I'd be like, nah, if you don't come and do some sumo deadlifts, fuck off.
Very well put. Same here. I mean, I would love her to, just also from a health perspective, because I know the benefits, especially for longevity. The older you're getting, this is I would love her just to do something, the bare minimum, like
CrossFit was good going.
Once or twice per week, right? Because we know when it comes to especially elderly folks, that a lot of the things that happen to elderly people, injuries and stuff, they do result from being unfit and inactive and stuff, and lacking the muscle mass. And I would love for her to just be a little bit more active. I mean, she is active, right? She is always on her feet, but that has nothing to do really with building some muscle mass and stuff. And it would be lovely just for the sake of knowing that she increases, probably just from the literature that we have, the chances of being healthier also later down in life.
Yeah, I think I need to actually look into it to confirm this statistic or this fact, but a lot of people who like break their hip and they have to have a hip replacement, a lot of people think that they fall and need a hip replacement, but a lot of the time they actually kind of have whatever happens to the hip and then they fall. Yeah. So it's not the fall that causes the problem, it's actually they've fallen and then now they find out that there's the problem. So if you had resistance trained and have your more muscle mass and more bone density, just much less likely to happen. So it's crazy how much just a little bit of weight bearing exercise can do for your like bones and everything.
Yeah, exactly. Bone health, just like organ health as well, overall metabolic health. I think it goes a long way, and there's more and more and more evidence coming out that just supports that a little bit of resistance training is super beneficial for elderly people, or not just for elderly people. It's better to actually build it when you are younger and maintain it when you're older, instead of just starting when you're older. But even if you're just starting when you're older, it's better that way than nothing at all.
Yeah.
And in the past, it was always to be thought that cardiovascular exercising is better, but it seems like a mixture of both is the way to go, of having a good amount of a balanced approach to cardiovascular abilities, but also then resistance training for then the muscular component and also bone components as well.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. Follow-up question. If your significant other wanted to start a diet and knew a little bit about nutrition/tracking macros, but wanted to get more serious, not just tracking, but learning and adjusting as well, where would you start? Something like the RP app, or would you just have them use Chronometer or MyFitnessPal and a coach like yourself? I can see how this could backfire horribly.
Funny enough, I talked, well, I said that Katie was doing CrossFit back then. And that was even the time where I encouraged her, but she wanted to lose a little bit of weight. And I said like, yeah, here's MyFitnessPal, start tracking things, right? I think I would do it differently now, though, because I don't think that MyFitnessPal is the way to go for the majority of people, especially the ones who are normally on the leaner side of things. There you can often say like, okay, just take a look at what it is that you're eating on a daily basis, and probably you're just taking a snack here and there that brings you into a caloric surplus or so. Over a long period of time, where it's just like 100 or 200 calories of a surplus on a daily basis can go a long way if you continue doing it like 365 days out of the year. And that most of the time resolves it. And I think that this was the case for her as well. She changed a little bit of her dietary habits, and then she lost the weight. And Katie is someone who is naturally more on the leaner side of things, and you have to force her and actually eating some things. And it always then depends on the person that you're dealing with. So if someone is super, I don't know, unhappy with the way they look, also have never been really active, and now they're changing things up drastically from one day to the next, probably chances are that they are giving up after a while, because this is also what we are normally seeing with New Year resolutions. When people are making too many drastic changes at once, it's so overwhelming and it requires so much work and effort on their end that most of the time they give up, or they stop continuing doing the positive or good habits, and then they are falling slowly back to the old habits again. So how would I go about it? I think I wouldn't like to be the one any longer who's then the person who keeps them accountable. I rather want them to actually either seek someone who really helps them, or maybe there's an app, something like simplistic as the RP app. I don't know the RP app well enough to actually give good recommendation of whether this gets the job done, but there are probably some things for different individuals that then would help them in their situation. But I don't think that I would be the one any longer who would give any kind of advice, or I would, of course, be supportive, but not be the one who's giving them the diet or giving them a workout program or something like that.
This is a tough question, I think, because I think it really depends who your significant other is and their background, where they're coming from and everything. Because for Charlotte, she couldn't use the RP Diet app. Just wouldn't happen. I just know her well enough. She wouldn't want to eat the food that the app's going to give her, because she wants lots of flexibility, because she wants to try these new vegan foods, and she doesn't want to have to think as much about, she just won't want to be eating as much protein as what it's going to recommend and all these different things. So it's just, I couldn't take her and coach her, because I would want her having a certain amount of protein, because I want her to maintain that muscle mass, because when she goes through a diet, she's just going to lose she's probably not going to lose any muscle mass, because she hasn't got particularly much muscle mass. So I also know Charlotte, and I can't get her to do anything. If I want her to do something, she will do the opposite. So it has to come from her and a want from her. So if she wanted to use the RP app, awesome. I just would be like, yeah, cool, you do that. Or if she wanted to use MyFitnessPal, I would go, yeah, cool, you do that. So I think it really depends. Whereas Katie might be someone who she'll listen to maybe a bit more than Charlotte would. She wants that advice and guidance.
Just to chime in there really quickly, I think that she would listen, but at the same time, all of the points that you brought up are the same things why I wouldn't want to do it any longer. I don't want to build that relationship with my wife, that I'm her coach now and she has to listen to me, that there is all of a sudden starting to be a hierarchy, that I'm the one who's above her and she needs to follow what I'm saying. I don't want it to be that way. And that's, I think, also we are living in our own bubble. It's so easy for us to give our recommendation based on our biases and our personal preferences. However, the recommendations of a bodybuilder are most of the time not very well suited for the gem pops. It's just, for us, it's super easy just to say like, okay, here's the macros, follow them. And even some people are struggling with that. That must be said. But just imagine what it will be like for someone who has little to no educational knowledge around nutrition and habit building around that. For them, it's still a new language to be learned, so to speak. And if only because it's easy for us, it doesn't mean that it's easy for them. Thus, I think you have to have a completely different approach to that. Yeah. And you brought up the greatest point, and that is you don't want to bring it up to a different level when it comes to the relationship that you have.
Yeah, and I think what you said about like the habits, and it's more of a like precision nutrition approach where you're like build a plate that's like a fistful or two fistfuls of protein, like a thumb of fat, and then like a couple of fists of carbohydrates. Like for my dad, something like that would be great, because he likes eating his protein. He's like building muscle, like all of that, but he doesn't want to have to worry about tracking an app or anything, and he doesn't want to have to think about things.
Already weighing things. Yeah. And once again, tracking this thing in MyFitnessPal is already, for many people, too much of a hassle. For us, it's an easy thing, right?
Yeah.
We don't even think about it any longer. But for many, many people, that's just already too much to be asked for. Yeah. They just want the most simplest. The best thing would be if someone is rich enough to just get a chef for his home. That's what people want.
Some of these meal prep companies are now coming out where they basically do your whole diet for like months on end. I reckon rich guys can just be like, do this for me.
I did tell you about one of my old friends. She was in Kuwait for a year and was working there as a CrossFit instructor. She's also doing CrossFit on a very high level. And she got sponsored by one of those meal prep companies. Just imagine that. Getting sponsored by a company like this. You don't have to spend money for food anymore. You don't have to actually take the time to grocery shop anymore. You don't have to sit or be in the kitchen to do the cooking. And also you don't have to do the planning of meals any longer. It's just like it always fits your macros for no time investment and no money. You just have to eat it. Hey man, so if there is a sponsor out there who wants to sponsor us, I don't give a fuck about supplements. Spare me that. Give me a meal prep company by my side. This is something that I want to have for the rest of my life as a sponsor.
Hey, Pascal here. I just quickly wanted to remind you of our online coaching service. At Revive Stronger, we put a huge emphasis on the personal aspect of our coaching. And if you want to take your physique and knowledge to the next level, hit the link in the description below.
And I mean, we're simple men. We just need like a bit of salt, some quark, some potatoes, and we're good.
And salmon. And
some frozen veg. Cool. So that was Scott's question. Let's go to James Swifty. And he has asked, do you often second guess yourself with things you know about training and nutrition? How do you overcome it, the internal chatter, and just get what needs to be done? Kind regards.
I think that we are both very much the same when it comes to that. So do you want to start with answering that question?
I can try. So yeah, I think we are similar, where we do definitely get this internal chatter. And we've spoken about it before where it's really helpful to have someone to talk to. So either it's your coach, because that can help your internal chatter and they can just be like, straight up, this is what I think. And then a lot of the time, for at least our clients, I think they just trust us once we've given them like the reason why we think that way. And they're like, cool, you just like put out this little fire that was like burning in my head. Whereas for us, we get that little fire in our head or whatever it is, and we chuck it at one another. And then we get kind of probably the answer we expect from the other person, but we needed to hear it from them to just give us that little bit of a push in the right direction. So yeah, when this does happen, that's where I normally go. Or I just put my coaching hat on if it's like a small thing, and I'm just like, fucking just do the plan. Because this is something I see holds people back really badly. It's not a commonly thought thing that holds people back, but it's held me back a lot, where I just didn't execute. I just kept overthinking things and changing things and like not feeling confident in my process. But once I started getting my confidence up and being like, nah, I know what I'm doing, let's just go, that's where the results started really coming through. So that's my experience with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, it's the same way. And one more thing, though, there's, of course, the fallacy of argument from authority. And this can also be applied the other way around, that sometimes, of course, you start to question yourself of like, why am I not growing? Why am I not as big as these guys who just have no idea really, who just like eat big and train hard, whatever this means, of course, right? But you put all that time and effort into learning about principles, learning about just the physiological processes, learning about training, nutrition, etc., and you still am sometimes confronted with the thoughts of like, why am I not looking like these guys? To put it that way, because I like to think that I already tick all of the boxes. So why am I not looking that way? Can it really just be genetics, or do they really have something to when they are just like pushing it to to failure or whatever it is, right? Is there something that I'm missing, right? And that's the other way around. Sometimes you fall into that mindset of like, okay, why are so many people, or why are so many, let's call them bros, right? So that everyone kind of knows who I'm, or what type of person or athlete I'm talking about. Why is it that they are seeing such good results and I'm not? Am I really overthinking things, as so many people write in the comment section? Am I just a pussy because I'm training to REO? Right? And then you just look at the evidence and just a logical and sound approach, and then you're presented with the other reality. And then it's just like a back and forth of ambivalence of like, okay, what is there that I'm missing, right? Maybe there is something to it. And this is where the second guessing comes into play, where you are then also, of course, more so drawn to the, let's call it the other side. Where it's like, okay, should I just start now training to absolute failure all the time? And should I maybe eat just like a bro, like meal prepping with rice, chicken breast and broccoli the entire time? Maybe there is something in regards to the minerals, vitamins that I'm not ingesting on a daily basis that actually is the magic ingredient. And these doubts, they creep into your head every now and then. Because we are all different, but it's so hard to then quantify what genetics can do, right? And I think that it's underestimated at times and overestimated at times what genetics, or how much of genetics play a role. And in that case, when you are doubting yourself, but you have sound principles and you can wholeheartedly tick off the box that you are leaving nothing on the table when it comes to training. You are doing all of the things that you are doing in regards to nutrition. Your sleep is sound, your recovery management and fatigue management is sound as well. And you still am not the biggest. Perhaps the genetics are really playing that much of a role. Whereas just like putting a stamp on genetics and be like, yeah, genetics, and then you still haven't really ticked off the box and training hard enough on all the things that are brought up, and you are not ticking off those boxes, then you are putting too much emphasis on the genetics or the genetic cards or genetic side of things. But yeah, these are the moments where then doubts very much creep into your head, where it's like, I don't want to call it unfair because everyone gets what they are looking for. That's a saying from Ed Coder. He's into finances, and he has been saying like the markets are always giving you what you are looking for. And I think that's the same principle when it comes to training and nutrition. If you really want to get big, you can do that. You just need to commit a lot of work, a lot of effort to that. And if you're not genetically blessed, maybe you need to maybe it takes twice the amount of time, but you can probably get big. I don't think that people can't get big unless there's a true medical condition going on or so, right? And that's where then things come into play, though. And yeah, the doubts creep into your head constantly.
Yeah, I think the genetics thing is so interesting because I tend to find the guys who probably have very good genetics and haven't had to think too hard about their training nutrition underplay their genetics. And then there are guys who seriously haven't, like you said, committed years to seriously ticking the boxes, who overplay genetics. And I recently did the post about like talent versus like hard work, which is basically genetics versus like your effort level. And I just made a comment in there being like, it's interesting how after a decade of literally nailing everything, or all the big things at least, how suddenly like poor genetics can start looking pretty decent. And so I don't think anyone really knows how great their genetics are until they've really put in like the time we have now of consistently nailing everything down. And I think unfortunately there are a lot of guys, and probably females as well, who if you like, they're like, oh, I have poor genetics, then you ask them like, so how much time have you put into specific hypertrophy training with a surplus? And like maybe at most it's like 2 years. And then you're like, well, in 2 years you're not going to be huge, unless you're a genetic freak. but truly in 2 years, you're not going to know. So I think a lot of the time, people just need to put more time. And like you've said so well so many times, like, what are you going to do if you like have bad genetics? Give up? Well, maybe you can, but if you love this, then just keep going and get the best you can. Try and stay rational, because it's very easy to be irrational and look at some of the freaks out there who, if you start listening to them and you're just like, maybe I am overthinking things, because they really don't think very hard about anything.
No.
And you're just like, God damn.
And you brought up one good thing, and this should act as a reminder. I think that the majority of listeners, though, they are very much passionate about bodybuilding, but this can also always dissipate. And thus, there are so many things in life that are worth living for. And bodybuilding may be one of them, if that's really something that you like. But if you think like you have bad genetics and you're not willing to just continue, or you can't see yourself continuing doing this for the next 10 years or 20 years, and you have the pursuit of getting bigger and bigger, right, then maybe this isn't for you, right? And you don't have to be a bodybuilder in that sense of like training 5 days out of the week or so. If you just want to be someone who's decently looks decent, better than the average, head over to Andy Morgan's page. Right? He is dealing with mostly Gen Pop clients, and they are achieving amazing results. And I can tell you that they are not committing like 24 hours to the day into bodybuilding or so. They are the ones who just like want to train 3-4 times out of the week and want to look good. And this is something that you achieve and can accomplish with much, much less dedication and work than it is that we are doing at the moment. And then you free up so much more time and energy for other things in life that you then can focus on, where you may not be limited by the genetics or so. And then you can excel there while still looking good.
You bring up another really good point, because I think a lot of people get to that intermediate stage of where maybe they've just trained 3-4 days a week and they haven't really taken like their nutrition super seriously and like making sure that they're optimizing their muscle protein synthesis, really haven't taken that much time to look at their sleep. And to get to advanced, I think you have to probably, for the majority of people, train probably more than 4 times a week to get the requisite volume in. Really have to start looking at your sleep, really have to start optimizing some of these higher pyramid items like supplementation. I don't think you ever need to necessarily like worry too much about, but nutrient timing I think is probably quite a big one, especially for protein. Sleep regularly, making sure you're getting enough sleep, spreading out your volume over like 5-6 sessions a week. I think a lot of people probably have to go to that point to get to that point where they're seeing these like Matt Ogus or something, where he obviously has very good genetics, but you might be able to get close, but it might just take more from you. And there's just diminishing returns the longer you do this. So you're like, you bring up a great point, because you might decide, I've got to this intermediate level. It's been okay, the investment, but I'm not willing to put in all the extra effort to get such little back. So I'm just going to have these sustainable, but really slow gains where maybe I reach 50 and I haven't got as big as what I maybe dreamed of getting, but who cares? Because I've had all this extra time to learn a different skill or something.
But I think that's the case with everything in life, isn't it?
Yeah.
The first initial steps are you're making major leaps forward, and then the progress slows down. And the learning curve actually slows down as well. I mean, it's getting harder and harder to actually become good at something. I don't know, or I don't understand why people are actually differentiating between bodybuilding and physique optimization that much in comparison to other endeavors in life. And I think that many people should look more at it from a pragmatic perspective. Like with everything in life, good things, good results, they take time. Sure, you can look good after 6 months. Absolutely, right? But to really look different in comparison to other people, you will probably have to invest a lot of time and effort to that. And for some, it's worth it, and for some, it's not. And that's absolutely all right.
Yeah, it's, I always just think to myself, and I look at my physique like 5 years ago, and it wasn't particularly impressive. And that was after actually probably 10 years of training, but 5 years of properly training. And then it's after 5 years of really putting everything in. Now I look impressive. but that's putting everything in. And I don't think many people can actually do that, because actually just from a lifestyle perspective, I've been able to set up my life to be able to do that.
I've told you about one of my athletes or former athletes, right? And I brought you up as an example. I said, like, okay, here, take a look at Steve. He has invested his last 3 and now coming up to 4 years dedicating like twice daily training, 6 times out of the year, out of the week, for 4 years straight, being absolutely precise with each and every single day, hitting the macros, taking care of fatigue management, taking care of sleep. This is something that many people would never be able to do because they don't want to, and that's all right. And then if someone is then taking a look at you and be like, oh, man, this is amazing progress. This is something that I would like as well. And after a year, they are underwhelmed with their progress, and you actually then present them with the facts. Okay, you've been on holiday 3 months out of that entire year where you just slacked off. You didn't train, you didn't track the macros. Then you had a 2 weeks, 3 weeks where you've been sick, so couldn't train and couldn't track the macros as well. At times, you've been at your girlfriend's place. You couldn't really track things there as well. Sleep was shitty. You couldn't weigh yourself, right? So let's just say, like, I don't know, 1/3 out of the entire year, you didn't tick off the boxes. And this man sitting in front of me, besides me now looking at the monitor screen, has dedicated his last 4 years of actually building that physique. Right? And you're complaining about not having seen the progress that you would like to, and you would like to look like him. And you can't really complain because you didn't do what Steve was doing in actually getting there, right? And I think that's super important. I think that too many people underestimate what it really takes to change something significantly in a very short period of time, and have to realize that if you're not genetically blessed, then you probably, if you want to see like a transformation like Steve has, that you have to invest years and really just dedicate a lot to it, which for the majority of people is not worth it, or they can't commit to it because they have other duties and tasks that they need to take care of in their life.
Yeah, it's really true, because I sometimes think of it because I post up maybe a before and after, and people be like, oh, you kind of give me inspiration for being able to get such a thing. And I just hope people realize that, whilst a lot of these things sound easy, like, yeah, I've hit my macros like every day for the last 4 years, basically. And I've made sure to think about my sleep every night. And I haven't missed training sessions. I've barely been injured. I've barely been on holiday. Like, on a day-to-day basis, that doesn't sound crazy. Like thinking, yes, sleep plenty, hit your macros. But doing that consistently for 4 years, it's quite challenging for a lot of people. Whereas like my days, I have a lifestyle that allows for it. And your lifestyle used to allow for it a lot more. And now it's a little bit more challenging, but you also do your best to do that too. And ultimately that's all anyone can do, is just do their best in that regard. So yeah, bit of a tangent, but I think a worthwhile one always.
We're coming up on time. So
yes.
I don't know if we can do another question. Let's call it here because I have an appointment at the doctor's, so I don't want to miss that one.
We all want Pascal healthy, so we all want you healthy. So let's make sure, and let's hopefully get some good news. And we'll check in next week, and we'll get to the rest of these. I think we only got through like 2 questions or something. We did. We gave them our all, and that's what matters.
Absolutely.
So, do we have time to pick a winner from last time? Or we...
I would rather skip that. I think that the last time people never reached out to us anyway, so...
Oh, maybe they didn't. Okay. Yeah, we'll pick one next week then, and we'll ask a question, because it was serial and then like volume or intensity. We'll do it next time.
Yeah.
So, sorry guys, but health matters most.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers, guys. So I'm Steve Hall, founder of Revive Stronger and a coach of Revive Stronger.
My name is Pascal Flor. I'm the co-owner of Revive Stronger and also a coach, of course.
Revive Stronger has probably been going solidly for 3 years, roughly about 3 years.
Revive Stronger, to me, it is becoming kind of my child, my foster child. It's the gathering and getting together of like-minded people.
We've been expanding the coaching team, which is helping us help more people, but each coach can only help a certain number of people.
Right now, it's all over the place. We have YouTube, we have Facebook, we have Instagram, but there isn't that community aspect behind that.
And so the next step for us is developing a membership site.
So basically, we want to create a family and a community that is then benefiting from another.
A really cool community for people within our little niche is going to be a website.
They will get early access to our podcast.
You can access us, ask us questions.
The community aspect, we have a forum there. You can ask questions, but also you can log your journey.
There's also going to be courses on there.
Courses, presentations on different topics. Discount of past seminar footage. We will log our journey as well. We'll start vlogging.
We're going to have documentaries.
Our entire athletic journey. Furthermore, they get access to an exercise video library.
The exercises that we love for hypertrophy and maximizing hypertrophy, we're going to go through those in depth, telling you how to execute them.
We kept them concise and also mobile friendly so that you can watch them in between your sets.
I'm super excited to grow this community. The amount of value that we're going to be delivering is huge, and I'd love you to be part of it.
You will get so much out of that.
I'll see you inside.